It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing. It's an everyday thing when you let your nuts hang. What it do, everyday people, man? It's your boy PJ. Today we back with another lit interview. Back in the confessional, and yes, we staying lit, big dog, man. Today we got a special guest, Tasha. She's a viewer that wanted to reach out and tell her story. It's a delightful story, and we're about to get into it. And you know, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to bring people with real stories. Of course, we see all the story times on TikTok, but we don't really get to talk to those people. And at this time, we'll get to ask questions, and I'll get to the bottom of it. So I just don't leave it open ended. So welcome, Tasha, to the platform.
Thank you.
I
How are you
appreciate you
today?
reaching out to me and wanting to share your story on this platform.
Okay, I'm grateful that you're giving me the opportunity to just tell my story and let people know these are real life events that occur. I'm quite sure I'm not the first person this has happened to in the county that I live in. It just, the way it was done, it was just done like it's common practice. That's, to me, it seemed like it's common practice.
Okay,
Um,
so start from the beginning. Tell us what happened and what's.
okay, what happened was in 2016, my father had been diagnosed with cancer, rare cancer, that he was exposed to Agent Orange in Vietnam, and his service connected illnesses and his cancer, a rare cancer, prostate cancer, a rare form, um, is what claimed his life. My father wanted to leave his family land. All of his beneficiaries would receive some land that has been in our family for at least 5 generations. Before my father passed away in 2016, he purchased he already had one parcel that he inherited in 1994 from his siblings, which contained 10.78 acres. In 2016, he purchased another parcel. They sat side by side. It formerly belonged to one of his cousins, and he purchased it because that was the legacy he wanted to leave for his beneficiaries and his family. What happened was he purchased the land in 2016. When my father passed 2 weeks after purchasing the land, and he purchased it in my mother's name, and it was to go to his children. They would be the ones to inherit this. So my father died. My mother had filed a will on his behalf. They had their wills drafted in 2013, October of 2013. Each one of them, their wills read that they would be leaving their inheritance to one another. They were spouse and they were leaving it. My father was going to leave his to my mother and vice versa. So when my father died, my mother petitioned the probate court in Fairfield County in the state of South Carolina, where I reside. Um, so she petitioned the court to open the estate, and she filed all the necessary documents, including his will. When my father died, he had 6 biological children, 2 adopted children, and then one legal minor that he had legally took guardianship of. So when a person dies, even though they may have had a will, in this case, my father had adopted one of the children after their wills were drafted in 2013. Actually, in November of 2019, he adopted one of his adopted daughters, which is one of his grandchildren that he adopted. So when he died, even though he had the adopted children, he had a total of 8 children and then a minor legal guardian. The probate court did not include any of the children. So my mother ended up inheriting the entire estate, which in the state of South Carolina, even if you have a will, if you adopted a child after that will was drafted, the in the state of South Carolina, because he had children and a spouse, the property should have been divided when my father died. It wasn't. It was not divided. We were not served renunciation letters, stating that the court is supposed to serve you and include you in the estate. The estate should have been divided where my mother received the spouse's share, and then the other half should have been divided between the siblings, the beneficiaries. That was not done. The adopted children were not included, even though my mother had listed them that they were to inherit in the event that the will was invalid. Okay, so that was not done. And like I said, my mother inherited the entire estate. So in 2020, my mother went on hospice in 2019. I was her caregiver and I was living with her at the time. Um, and she passed, okay, in April of 2019, my sister had called and asked my mother if she could get her share of inheritance. One of my sisters, my eldest sister, she said that her fiance wanted to build her house and she wanted her property then. So she asked my mother if she could come to her home with her attorney, and if she would deed her share of the estate at that time. Um, so my mother, even though she wasn't comfortable with the idea, okay, we were to inherit a total of 21.78 acres that sit on two different parcels. One parcel contains 10.78 acres my father inherited in 1994 from his siblings, and the actual property he purchased in 2020 contained 11 acres. So you add the two together, you have a total of 21.78 acres. So when my sister, her attorney from Ridgeway, can I name names or do I have to be the okay? Well, a local attorney by the name of Robert Hartman from Ridgeway, South Carolina, came to the he was Alicia was accompanied by Robert Hartman. It was Alicia Davis, and then he brought a gentleman with him that was supposed to an alleged witness. He was supposed to witness my mother signing a deed. So I was present. I'm Tasha, and then one of my brothers stopped by. My youngest brother, Brian, stopped by. So he is aware of the the deed that ended up getting drafted and filed on Alicia's behalf 2 days after they came to my mother's home on April 13th, 2020. No, 2019. No, what was it? No, we were in 2020. I'm sorry. April April 13th, 2020 is when they came to my mother's home. The attorney did not bring the deed that he ended up filing on my sister's behalf on 4/15, 2020, actually 2 days after they came to my mother's home. The only thing that this attorney had in his hand was a yellow page legal notepad and an ink pen. He never pulled out a deed. We were never shown a deed. My mother wasn't read anything that a deed would state. The witness did not sign the deed that was filed in front of my mother or witness my mother signing. Okay. And so and Alicia did not want any questions asked. Now, prior to any, okay, I have evidence of a receipt that I didn't know you could see it that well. My brother had also, like Alicia, paid this attorney to draft and file a deed on his behalf. But after his visit at my mother's house, he told my brother, I can't do anymore like I did Alicia's. The property would have to be surveyed first, which it should have occurred prior to him drafting or filing any deed on Alicia's behalf. Because this property was heir property and he was familiar with that, he had filed my father's deed of distribution when he died. When the land was purchased in 2016, he drafted that deed and filed it. He drafted my mother's deed of distribution. He had a relationship with my father. He had done business with him prior to, this occurring. So he knew that there were other beneficiaries besides Alicia. And he knew that the property was not surveyed or subdivided, despite the fact my father had other beneficiaries. So when the deed, 2 days after they visited my mother's home, they went and filed the deed. He filed the deed on Alicia's behalf for 2.58 acres, a portion of both parcels that totaled 2.58 acres from the entire total of 21.78 acres. And 6 months after the deed was filed on Alicia's behalf, the tax assessor's office in Fairfield County, as a matter of fact, from a letter Alicia wrote to the appellate court, she stated Jim Thompson in the tax assessor's office, who is, I looked up his job description and it said field, what did I tell you? A field representative. So he's not even an assessor. But what he did was he transferred the ownership of that property 6 months after my mother had passed and gave Alicia credit of owning a certain portion of the land from both parcels and two of the four buildings that sit on one of the parcels without any survey being done. Now, a survey would establish boundaries. And because there were other people entitled to inherit this property, this attorney knew that that was not the proper way that should have been done. So that made Alicia's deed actually invalid. But instead of it being invalid,
she did her own survey.
Oh, yes, she also admitted on that letter she wrote to the appellate court that she walked the property and did her own survey. That is illegal. You have to have a licensed surveyor to do a legal survey. So how is it the tax assessor's office can tell her what property she owned if no boundary lines have ever been established? That's not possible.
So there was 4 buildings on the property prior to signing the deed, or the what was this, deed separation,
No, deed of distribution.
deed of
When my
distribution.
mother died and Robert Hartman filed her deed of distribution, um, she had the one property was purchased in her name in 2016, and then she inherited the other tract, that other parcel with the 10.78 acres from my father. And so those properties were located on the property prior to the attorney drafting and filing that deed. He stated on the witness stand in the court of common pleas that he didn't know who owns the homes on the property. How is it you're filing and drafting a deed on someone's behalf? You don't even know who owned the homes that you're claiming one of which was deeded to Alicia. I mean, that's impossible. And then how can you say that Alicia owns a certain amount of land that has not been surveyed to this date remains undivided? And the all of it has to be surveyed. So why would they give her credit of owning any portion of the land that was not legally subdivided and surveyed prior to that deed being drafted and filed?
So was it supposed to be surveyed like specific spots of the land was supposed to be divvied out to each person, or like
Yes, each
because
beneficiary got an equal share of the inheritance, which
but
was
because she went first, she went and picked that spot that had the properties. I mean, they had the buildings on the property.
no, she didn't pick it. After that attorney drafted and filed the deed, when the tax assessor's office got the deed or whatever, he just transferred the property into Alicia's name without a survey or plat being filed along with the deed to actually create boundary lines showing which section or which property Alicia owned. And it was not done because it could not be done individually. The property had to be surveyed all together, both parcels, and then subdivided. And then an attorney would be involved, and she would be responsible for drafting and filing the deeds. Then you would receive your plat, your survey, and you would actually know which property you owned. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I got you.
So at this point, the tax assessor's office has stolen this property from us. And what Alicia began doing, her deed stated she inherited the 2.58 acres and a home that is located on 1948 Belfield Road. But she began, after the tax assessor's office illegally transferred our property, stole our land that they gave her credit of owning, and transferred the property. Alicia began claiming my home that is located at 1950 because they gave her credit of owning a portion from both of those tracts. And that's where those homes were located, on one of the tracts. And there were four buildings. I have an outbuilding, and there's my home. And then Alicia had several outbuildings that she put together. So I count that as one because that she um attached them, yeah, attached to three, and her son actually lives there, and she resides in the home, which is our parents' former home at 1950. The home that I have on the property, I actually purchased from my cousin after it was damaged by fire. I purchased the structure, and my father allowed me to move it on the property that I would one day own a share of. So after the tax assessor transferred the property in November of 2020 into Alicia's name. Now, mind you, my mother did not know. She had no idea of what had been filed or drafted. She did not receive a copy. They told her she would receive a copy that afternoon of what they had her sign on that day. She never received her copy. She called my sister at least twice before she passed away, a month after this deed was filed. Um, my mother passed away. The deed was filed on April 15th, 2020. My mother passed away the following month, May 22nd, 2020, which was like a month and maybe 6 days after that deed was filed. My mother died without knowing what had been filed. She was not shown the deed that is actually on file at the courthouse, at the clerk of court's office. She did not sign that deed. The witness did not witness her sign a deed, nor did he sign as a witness on the deed. It didn't happen. So In January of 2021, I was served with the first notice to quit um, that Alicia filed with the magistrate court in Fairfield County. She's huh?
What's a notice to quit?
A notice to quit is like an eviction notice. You're asking the occupants to vacate the property, and you are making it like you're my landlord and I'm your tenant. She has never been my landlord. I've never been her tenant. No landlord tenant relationship has ever been established or anything. So she filed the first notice to quit in January 2021. When the initial hearing was held, a magistrate judge, Judge Washington, actually presided over the hearing. She initially ruled in Alicia's favor. After the hearing was held, I called the attorney that had filed the deed on Alicia's behalf and told him, what Alicia was claiming. She was claiming ownership of my home. And he asked me which judge presided. And he then proceeded to call the magistrate court. He told me he was going to call and speak to the judge that presided over the notice to quit hearing. But he actually spoke to the Chief Justice, Judge Russell Feaster. And he told Judge Feaster that Alicia's claims were basically not true, that my mother did not give Alicia anyone's property, nor did she intend to. So because of that phone call, um, I was waiting for the attorney to call me back. He didn't call me back. So the following day I called him, and he told me at that time, I think I should stay out of it because I'm the attorney that filed the deed, and I just think I shouldn't take anything to do with it. Now, this after he done called the Chief Justice and informed him of, you know, uh, Alicia's not telling you the truth. So after he told me, that I shouldn't take anything to do with it, I called the court because I wanted to explain to them, this is not correct. None of us own any of this property. I asked to speak with the chief judge. I did not know who Mr. Hartman talked to when he called the court, but as I began to introduce myself to the magistrate judge, he stopped, said, um, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I received a phone call from a Robert Hartman, and he stated he drafted and filed a deed on Alicia Davis's behalf, and that Alicia's claims that your mother did not give Alicia anyone's property, nor did she intend to. So at that time, he granted me a stay, and because the court had told me I had 10 or 14 days to move. But he told me I didn't have to move. I was granted a stay, and he told me I would hear from the court. Another hearing would be held on the matter because, it needed to be reheard after the attorney called him. So um, once he granted the stay, I was like, well, I don't want to go back to court without representation just because of the way the judge had ruled on that, case. So I hired an attorney from Columbia, South Carolina, Attorney
Can I
Davis.
ask you why did your sister feel the need to put you out of the house?
Being greedy. Oh, this is what she stated in the appeal letter that she wrote and a group text message. She stated that she was using it as a bargaining tool. What she initially wanted us to do is we have another property at another address, and we were left the home as tenants in common and almost an acre of land. She wanted us to give our share of inheritance in that home to one of our sisters that live in Jacksonville, Florida. And we were like, no, we ain't doing that. But for her to try to make us do it, she started threatening to disinherit my brothers. She's threatened to that's when she started coming for my home and saying, She was going to use it as a bargaining tool. She also stopped by Attorney Hartman's office and told him she learned from the tax assessor office, Jim, that she actually was the owner of 1948 and 1950. Even though it was not ever intended to go on her deed, the deed they filed, the home is not included on that deed. She has never owned the home. I've had the home since 1998. And Alicia, her husband did some time in the army. He actually retired from the army. They served some time in Germany. When they came back from Germany, they were located in Oklahoma for a period. And then when he retired, they moved to South Carolina. This was in 2006. Now, mind you, I've had the home since 1998 when it was moved on the property. As we repaired the home, my brothers assisted, my father assisted. We had a moving company move the structure. I assisted. I even laid tile on the roof. Shingles. What is it? Shingles. I even did help my father do that. Tirelessly, we worked on this house to restore the home because I had recently moved from Columbia. My father didn't like the area that I was living in, and he wanted me to bring my children back to, the country where I was raised so they could have a yard and he would feel safe. So he allowed me to put the home on the property and assisted me and called my brother from Florida. He said, I need you here. I need you to help with getting this home restored for Tasha. I mean, all of my cousins, everybody knew whose house it was before we even moved the structure. So, uh, like I said, after we remodeled the home and everything, but Alicia began claiming it after that property was transferred. She does not even legally own the home that she's in because her deed is invalid due to the survey and subdivision not being done. So when we went back to court, I had hired attorney Kenneth Davis of Columbia, of Boykin and Davis, and he represented me. He filed a motion to dismiss the notice to quit based on South Carolina statute 22-3-20, stating that the magistrate court lacked jurisdiction due to the fact title and boundaries were in dispute, and that the magistrate court lacked subject matter jurisdiction. The judge recessed for 2 minutes. I guess she had to go and look up the law and see if that was actually the statute or whatever, verify it. And so she left the courtroom for maybe 2 to 4 minutes. When she came back, she granted the motion in my favor and dismissed the case. So after that, Alicia was allowed to file an eviction in 2023. Now, this case is already settled. It's been dismissed due to the statute, due to the South Carolina state law. But the magistrate court allowed her to file an eviction in 2023. She appealed the eviction. A jury ruled in my favor the first time, and with the appeal, that second jury ruled in my favor also, based off the evidence that I presented and the copy of the letter Alicia wrote to the appellate court when she tried to appeal the first notice to quit that she filed. She later ended up dropping her appeal, but I had gotten a copy of that letter. And I read the letter, and she stated that she had a conversation with the attorney where he told her they're not just going to let you take your sister's house. And they talked about they could change something, and they were actually and then that showed that the attorney was aware of what Alicia was trying to do. So at that point, to me, that seems like a collusion, or they collaborated. And he was aware of what was going on. Mind you, he had the ability to go and do a correction or ask for that deed to be removed because he knew Alicia's claims were not accurate. He also knew that the property had not been surveyed. Alicia didn't legally own anything, but the tax assessor's office was giving her a bill. So she felt like that was a license to come from me and use my property to make us, that's extortion, to make my brothers and I, and to sign over our share of inheritance in a home that we own together. That's criminal. That's
So there's multiple properties, multiple buildings or homes on the property.
exactly.
The
Yes.
but when she filed for the deed, it was for the properties in which the addresses, which one the house that you lived in and the other home.
No, what happened was it was for the deed listed the 2.58 acres. Like I said, out of the total of the 21.78 acres, and then the home located at 1948 Belfield Road, which was my parents' former home. It formerly belonged, it was the family home. It was actually the home that I lived in while I repaired my home, which sat behind her home, the dwelling that she resides in. Because when she moved back to South Carolina, my parents allowed her to move in the home. And that would be included in her inheritance once we surveyed and subdivided the property. You understand?
So
And
initially, she was supposed to get the first home, not your home.
exactly. She was entitled to a share of the estate and a share of both both parcels. And then the home that she resided in would have also been included on her section of property. That is what it was supposed to be. But she started coming for me and trying to take both homes, my home and her home. I realized that the addresses were incorrect. They actually had the 1948 address on my home. And she was claiming didn't have an address listed under her home. If you look at the GIS pictures on file in the tax assessor's office, you know how yeah, they had two homes listed under one address. And from what I was told, because I was told, given the number and told by the assessor when I went there, stating, how did y'all do this? I have been going up there since 2021 trying to get this straightened out. I went to the 911 administrator who assigned my address, and I had to file for, of course, what are those things called? Permits. When we moved the property and was doing the repairs and the septic tank license and all of that stuff. So when my documents were filed, my address was 1948 at that time, my parents' former home. So they stated that they left a few of the tax map numbers off, and that is why they used the address that was my address at the time, that 1948. So
So
that's why the home wasn't already listed in my name at that time, the 1950 home.
so this is basically because of a technicality when moving a home originally on the property.
Exactly. And then they listed the address improperly when I filed for my 911 address, because at that time we had switched over from transition from like route addresses where Route 1, box 17K, we switched over to a 911 system where if you ever had to call 911, they knew exactly where to come based off your 911 location and address. So I was told that a few of the tax map numbers were left off, and that's why the property wasn't correctly listed under the correct address in my name. Um,
So your sister found this out upon going for the deed
yes,
distribution.
she must have, but let me tell you, in 2020, when my mother died, me and my sister would split the tax bill. The year my mother died, they had listed my home on the new parcel that was purchased in 2016, and that property is vacant. So when it changed, so when we were actually billed for the taxes for that year, they had the tax bill on the vacant property, and the old property, the old parcel, they listed that tract as being vacant. Do you see what I'm saying? And then Alicia's home wasn't showing up at all at that time, not under any address. You know, it was every time you see the address 1948, it would show my house, which my house was actually 1950. So I went to the tax assessor's office trying to apply for my legal residency and trying to get them to correct the mistake that was there, to correct the address, list me as the legal owner of the property, and letting them know Alicia does not own this home. This needs to be straightened out. I contacted 3 different county administrators trying to get one of them to just, they are over the tax assessor's office, to try to get them to investigate, just to go over there and take a look and see that that property remained undivided, and that, you know, nobody owned any, none of us could claim any portion of that property. All of us had the right to enjoy that property equally, live on that property, and, you know, we could not be trespassed off of that property because we're on the deed of distribution. I'm over this last since they transferred that property, and I actually learned all of this after that first notice to quit and everything. And Alicia had began, after she had filed that, and I knew that she had started claiming my home and she was the legal owner of it and everything. And I visited that office. Those men have been so disrespectful to me, and they have violated my rights. They have violated our property, my private property, our air property, and they have been so disrespectful to me. I wrote down to the point to where I started writing down every statement they made to me. I need to find that copy. I wrote down everything that they've said to me over these past 5 years, and you would be appalled to see how they have treated me when I'm the victim, and you all actually are doing harm to my family. Family bonds have been destroyed. Um, our property remains undivided today. We have not resolved our estate issues. It is just a total mess. Our civil rights have been violated, constitutional rights, 14th Amendment right. I mean, it is just an, and to see what has occurred in these courts, the way these judges have ignored laws, have it's terrible. The magistrate court allowed her to file the first notice to quit in 2021, the appeal, which she later dropped, then the eviction, an appeal of the eviction, and then not 6 months later allow her to go file another notice to quit based on the same facts, even though she was lying to them, telling them new ownership had been established when that was incorrect. They still allowed her to file another notice to quit after that first notice to quit. The evictions had already been settled. Isn't that something like double jeopardy to sit there and continue to file someone over the same case that has already been settled?
I think I think she could probably keep filing until I mean,
No, not under the same pretense. Like she was filing under the same conditions. Nothing had changed. Our land still remained undivided. Now, if something had changed, she possibly would have been able to refile it. Like if say the land had actually been divided, or the claim was a little different, she might have been able to file it. But these things were filed under the same merits as the initial one.
okay. So explain this recording that we about to listen to.
Okay, this is of a visit to the tax assessor's office. Was it that day that he wouldn't accept my application for my legal residency? Okay, yes, that's what that is. A phone. That was over the phone. Mm-hmm. Okay, that was over a phone call to the assessor's office inquiring about the property and whether they had received my documents to correct the address and everything.
Okay, so let's take a listen to that real quick.
Okay. Documentation that I have. You won't take my deed or any documentation from me.
You can bring it and drop it off. I don't care, but I'm not going to sit here and go over it with you.
Well, how did y'all take documentation from her and she didn't tell y'all the truth about all the buildings that's on that property? On her tax bill, she got 2 buildings. It's 4 buildings on the property now. Her
it's
tax,
6 buildings.
It's 6 buildings.
Wouldn't they just get you just to discuss this with our county attorney?
Yes, I would like to do that to explain to him what's going on.
I will contact him on Monday, and then
I need this done before Monday, Mr. Hensley, because right now I'm homeless because of this.
It's not going to happen today. I can't snap my fingers and have these people show up where you can talk to them.
Can y'all send somebody out to the property just to look at the property?
No.
Why not?
You hear him? You hear this man?
Well, her tax bill only says 2 buildings. It's 4.
It's 6.
It's 6 altogether. I don't have nowhere to go.
There's nothing I can do. I'm sorry.
Y'all did this, Mr. Hensley.
We did not do it.
It's not according to the deed because my property is not included on her deed.
And it wasn't a survey.
And it was not surveyed.
Property line's supposed to stop.
And to show where the property line's supposed to stop, the boundaries or anything.
She said she did her own survey.
And it would never included my house. Mr. Hartman called the attorney and called the judge and told him that in 2021. And because title and boundary was a dispute, it was dismissed in 2021. But because she has that tax bill from y'all, that's the only reason all of this is going on. But we still don't have the property divided. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to get y'all to understand.
I understand what that deed told us to do, and that's what we have to do by law.
But if you don't have anything marked, how are you able to say these 4 when her tax bill says 4 buildings? I mean 2 buildings, but it's all those other buildings on the property. And she's claiming y'all have her address showing up on my house. That's the only reason she been claiming it.
Going back to addresses again.
That's from depression. Well, who lists the address? Okay, well, that's the part I'm trying to get straightened out. And also with y'all, because that would correct this situation. That's the only, and because she's getting that tax bill for property we still have to have surveyed. None of us know where any boundary lines are. And it's 6 of us that's on the deed of distribution, but it's actually 8 of us that have to be included because it was 2 adopted children.
I don't know what to tell you.
So you don't even know what to tell me. The fact that she's only
I'm just telling you that deed transferred the property to her from your mother. It was done by Mr. Hart.
It didn't. And first of all, we didn't even start owning that property.
Why don't you call Robert Hart?
We started.
Like where you have a problem.
Well, but why would y'all change that property without having him survey? He know that property was supposed to be surveyed first because it was heir property.
He wrote the deed to transfer the entire property. That's what we did.
No, not the entire property. We have a total of 21.78 acres. They only gave her a portion from 2 different parcels. One that we didn't even own until 2016. That was surveyed in 1994. And then the other had 10.78 acres. The new tract had 11 acres, so they gave her credit of owning a portion of both of those tracts. Not the total property. Just a portion of it.
I think I'm just going to turn this over to our county attorney and just get him. He'll be in contact with you, okay?
All right.
All right, so that was the recording with the county assessor. Now,
what do you think about that recording, PJ?
all right, so my honest opinion is he couldn't do nothing, and I think it's more so far out of his hands with it already been going through court, and now she's taking it to removing you off the property, which if it looks on the county's website, when they look at the address and it shows your house, that's what the county is going by.
But they still would have to establish boundary lines would still have to be created to show what she owns. She doesn't legally own anything because we don't know where this property is. We can't look at that deed that was filed and just say, okay, this is what she owns. You know, a title, a survey, a boundary survey would mark exactly what she owned and what everyone owned. That was the reason it was supposed to be surveyed and then subdivided. And PJ, they are the ones that created this issue by transferring the property with no legal grounds to do so.
Now, I agree with that. That this shouldn't have been done, because now you know, of course, legally the property is supposed to be divided before anyone takes ownership of any part of it, because I mean, even then, once the property is divided, say if one of your brothers wanted the home, he has the legal right to fight for the home
if it was on his land,
because all the land is together.
Yeah,
but once you divide it,
yeah,
then if everybody is okay with the division of the property and who gets the parcels on the property, then that makes it much easier. But it sounds to me as once y'all begin the process of dividing the property and the parcels on the land, Alicia is still going to be stuck on getting that home.
Oh, she is. Now let me tell you what she tried to do now. Her Alicia and two of my sisters, well, on my only 2 other sisters, the 3 of them filed a petition and hired an attorney to represent them to ask the court to open my mother's estate. We were not included. My brothers and I, the adopted children, we were alienated from the entire process. The probate court was biased against us when we filed. Like I said, I was the caregiver, so I filed a petition to serve as the representative. The judge did not even consider it. It was supposed to be a hearing. There was no questions back and forth. There was no anything. This judge came in there with her mind already made up as to who was going to serve as the administrator, because my sisters had went and told the court, made them think that we were an issue. They had told them all kind of things that, in my opinion, biased the court against us. We didn't even have a chance. The attorney told us that he could not speak with us, that he represented Nikisha. Now, he was supposed to be representing the all of us as a family. But he stated to my brother and I that he didn't represent us. He only represented Nikisha, but at the same time, he had been having conversations with Alicia and Kimberly. Alicia failed to tell the probate court that she was already claiming ownership of that property that the tax assessor's office illegally transferred into her name. So, because she neglected to tell the probate court that, and despite the fact now, I had an attorney file a lis pendens through the probate court, notifying them that, okay, I had been told by the probate judge that was actually the probate judge in 2021 when they asked the court to open the estate. She's gone. She's not on the bench now. She retired. Someone else replaced her. But I asked for a hearing, and the lis pendens had been filed notifying them that the deed was an issue, and the lis pendens meant that before that estate could be closed, the issue with the deed had to be addressed. The probate court told me I would need to file a lawsuit in the Court of Common Pleas to challenge that deed. Well, what I did was had the attorney ask to set the deed aside until this property has been surveyed, subdivided, and equally divided. That you just sit that deed aside that Alicia has, because I knew my mother did not see it or anything, and it's already created all of these problems. The tax assessor's office just changed ownership of the property, and that created a huge problem for us because that 2.58 acres should have been in the total amount that we inherited from the estate. Instead, that 2.58 acres was left out of the estate because they figured that was done prior to the estate opening, which it actually should have been included because it still has to be surveyed. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. So pretty much they trying to take her land out of the 21 acres.
It was left out.
Yeah, it was
So
left
now
out.
she's claiming that 2.58 acres, plus she went on the deed of distribution because she didn't inform the court that that was supposed to be her share of property, that deed that had been filed on her behalf, and that she was not entitled to an equal amount, another 1/6 of the property.
So what are your next steps to close the deed, or to get the land surveyed and basically divide the property? You have to get lawyers involved, or
Yes, we have to get lawyers involved because what I understand, we have to petition the probate court and go back to the probate court and deal with those issues through the probate court. And what was the other
and
thing?
so and all this has left you homeless,
Oh, what's that, PJ?
and all this, through all this, has this left you homeless?
Yes, I have no home now. I'm staying in the home that we all own as tenants in common, which I would periodically stay here anyway because my sister had started calling the police ever since she started claiming my property and infringing on my privacy, breaking in my home. And it had me to where I didn't want to really move into the house permanently until everything was resolved because it was too much of a hassle. I was depressed. I had been put on depression medication. Mind you, I'm still grieving. I wasn't getting any help with caring for my mother from my sisters or anything. I did the planning of the funeral. I had to handle everything because they did not step up and assist. And then all of this problem is created because Alicia wants to use my home and extort me to make me sign over my inheritance in another property we inherited. None of it's okay. This has damaged family bonds. This has caused emotional distress, damages to property. My property, she is right now, she is in possession of everything that I had. In my home, in my utility building. She continued to break in my building. She has blocked my access to this building for over a year. She kept breaking the locks. Then she removed all the property from the building. She painted the building that's still under contract. When the writ was issued, because what happened was after the last notice to quit was filed, the judge at the magistrate court ruled in her favor this time. And so I filed an appeal after she ruled in her favor. And now, mind you, in the hearing, I gave the judge my title to my home, evidence of that extortion letter, and Alicia admitting my home was not supposed to be included on her deed, but Jim told her she owned the home. And, after he had transferred the property, he admitted all of that. I gave the judge proof of that. The judge did not even read the evidence. She also did not consider my title, which that morning I didn't have a physical copy with me. So I called the clerk of court's office and got them to email me all the information. And I showed it to her on my electronic device. So after she made her ruling, I filed an appeal with the appellate court. The appellate judge, now mind you, when I went to the hearing, I was late. I had called the court to inform them that I would be late because I could not find the letter that I had received notifying me of the time of the hearing. So I had to wait until the courthouse opened, to call and see what time the hearing was. So I rushed out of the house after speaking to them. And when I got to the courthouse and up at the courthouse door, it must have been about 10 o'clock. And the hearing actually started, I believe it was 9:30. Yeah, 9:30, because the courthouse opens at 9 o'clock. So I had to knock on the door to get someone and call in to the courthouse and get someone to come and unlock the door that let me into the courtroom. Alicia didn't show up at court at all. So the judge he called me, before the court and asked me why was I late, and I explained to him, and he asked me what was going on, and I told him, that my sister was trying to take my home. I told him that her attorney had called the chief judge in 2021 and told him that Alicia's claims were not true. No, I actually said the attorney that filed her deed actually called the judge and told him her claims were not true. And also that what else did I tell him? Oh, that attorney had testified in the court of common pleas when I asked the court to sit her deed aside, which that case was actually dismissed. And her counterclaim was dismissed. He said that I didn't prove my burden. But that day, my attorney had wanted me to ask for another continuance, which the judge had already granted me one continuance. So I went on and acted pro se, and represented myself in the hearing. He did not receive a copy of Alicia's deed. And I guess he said I didn't prove that the signature was not my mother. That's what he focused on, that part of it, that I didn't prove that my mother didn't sign that deed. But it was more to it as to why I filed that lawsuit. I filed asking the court to sit that deed aside, so what is occurring now wouldn't be occurring. The fact that she's trying to, now she wants us to sign that deed of distribution where she gets another 1/6 of the property, plus she's used the court to take my house, and she wants the home she lives in and the 2.58 acres the tax assessor's office put in her name. But they have told me when I went there and informed them of what, she was suing me because of what, them transferring that property. They told me, Jim told me, no one should be suing anyone because that property still has to be surveyed. So knowing this, you created this problem. And the only reason he did it, I assume, is because that attorney filed that deed, and with them being in the same county and that attorney being able to file property deeds and everything, I'm sure they have a relationship. He files a lot of deeds there. And that,
So, will y'all be? Do you think y'all be resolving this property issue anytime soon?
I hope and pray that we can. And I hope that um, the appellate judge that affirmed this decision. Now, the appellate court's job is to see if an error in the law was made when the magistrate judge ruled on the case. Clearly, well, there was an error in law that was established in 2021. When the case was dismissed due to the court having no jurisdiction. So when I stood before the appellate court, I told him that the court lacked jurisdiction. I told him that, the attorney had stated he didn't know who owned the homes, and that he also had called the Chief Justice. He asked me, what attorney did that? And I stated the attorney's name in open court. So after I stated that, he said, okay, well, I'm going to look at what the judge filed in her order. Mind you, she didn't submit any evidence to the appellate court. She only wrote her order. And that is what he used to make his decision on the case. That's what he told me he was going to look at. So when I received the decision from him, he affirmed the magistrate's decision. So when he did that, Alicia went to the magistrate court and asked him to issue a writ of possession. The magistrate court served me with a writ of possession. That same day, I had filed a motion to stay the eviction notice and a motion to stay the appeal, to stay in the home while until the appeal was resolved. But she asked for the writ to have me evicted from the home. Then I filed so the court called and they requested that the hearing for the stay be expedited. So the week that was done, the judge that presided over the case was actually on vacation. So when he returned, they had scheduled a video hearing that we were to attend. So the hearing was held, and he informed us that he had been on vacation. He stated to me, Angela, what did I tell you he stated? I'm trying to think. What was it that he said? Oh, he told me two judges have told you who owns this home, who owns the property. Now, that is not the decision for him to make at that time. This case has to go through an appeal, but you're basically telling me how your appeal is going to go. You have made up your mind. You have let me know that your mind, you're telling me The magistrate court could tell me who owned this house when they lack jurisdiction to decide property matters. And then you're letting me know that you affirmed it and that pretty much that's your decision. Now, I don't know what the outcome of the appeal would be, but if he presides, you pretty much told me that you're saying she owns this property. So is that what you would rule in the appellate case?
Yeah, it seems that y'all got to go uh, through the probate and stuff. And this is what I want to tell, like my viewers, is like building a trust right now when you own property and stuff is it's much better than having a will, because as you know, this family had a will and also property already to who was supposed to be distributed to, but of course with no living trust, then things could be tied up in courts. It seems like y'all gonna be going through this for the next few years, and it doesn't seem like it's gonna be solved anytime soon because of maybe greed, maybe it may be, somebody's has a vengeance against y'all or whatever the case may be. But this always divides families over and over and over again. And
Yes, and then let me tell you this. So when after the magistrate court issued the writ, I was served with the writ. 2 hours after that writ of ejectment was posted, they're supposed to give you 24 hours once they issue that writ. Mind you, after the motion to stay was granted, Alicia had to leave my home that she had broken into after the writ was posted on my door. She broke the lock on my home, and her son's girlfriend, Larisha, went into my home, stole my property. Um, she set my stuff out. She actually, at that point, that made that a wrongful eviction. She is not supposed to break into my home and remove anything or steal my possessions. That would have been for the constable or the sheriff department to do. Each time the magistrate court issued a writ, which, from what my understanding, their case is suspended while this is in the appellate court. They do not have the authority to be issuing and enforcing writs at this time. I had been granted a continuance when this final writ was enforced, and Alicia was given possession of my home. I was under continuance at that time. I had been granted a 30-day continuance when I was evicted from my home. So the day that I was evicted from my home, I was told that I could not go back to the property after 6 o'clock. I have not been given the opportunity to get my possessions. Oh, let me tell you, after Alicia set my possessions out, the sheriff that was handling the was supposed to be in charge of the move out had texted me and told me, Latasha, I apologize for any inconvenience. I see that you have been granted a continuance. A few hours later, that changed, and I'm told I cannot come back on the property after 6 o'clock. Alicia would have me arrested and for trespassing on her property after 6 o'clock p.m. So I was arrested that evening. They came to my home. I was at my home. I went home. Shortly after I arrived at home, 2 officers came, and I was told by one officer that came in all aggressive, Latasha, you are not supposed to be at this home, and you need to move now, and you need to get out of this home right now. And I said, I'm not leaving my home. I'm not going anywhere. And he told me, well, you're going to get arrested. So he said, you need to come down these stairs. And they proceeded to put my arms behind my back. Well, I have a disability and I'm in constant pain. And even holding my arms behind my back was painful. And I told the officer, I said, please don't do that. That hurts so bad. Please don't do that to me. Can you please put the cuffs in the front? He told me no, he could not. At one point, I thought they were going to try to throw me on the ground to get the doggone cuffs on. But anyway, they arrested me. I have the title to this home. That address is on my driver's license, my voter registration, my utilities that I have had installed since 2001. Every ownership document is in my name, including the 911 documents that I got from the government office. But I was arrested and I'm on the deed of distribution and the property is undivided. When I was locked up that night, first of all, I was in pain from riding to the jail with my arms behind my back. I had to sleep on the floor on a little mattress, and I woke up through the night and a big cockroach was crawling on me. I've never been arrested in my life. I've never spent time in a jail, not even for a hold. I was appalled that this was happening to me. And then, so after I was arrested that day, I had left a bag with my medicine and stuff in my house, and I went back to my house when I got bonded out of jail the next day. Well, I was given a PR bond, but the judge said, "You are not to return to this property." But I did. I had left my medication. I went to the property because I'm still in disbelief that I don't actually do not have possession of my home after what, 25 years or so. I could not, I'm in disbelief. Then I'm an heir to this property. How can I be trespassing on property I own a share of? That was an illegal arrest. And I was arrested the second day. I was arrested. She called the
So,
police.
are you gonna file lawsuits after all this is settled?
That is my plan. And I am in the process now of calling around trying to find representation. Um, I'm not in a situation to afford these high retainers, and I've already had to hire two attorneys since all of this began. So now in the trespassing case, I was able to file for a public defender. I paid $40 and filed for, a public defender. But in this case, I was trying to find someone who would take the case based on contingency. But I'm in search of that now. I've been to organizations like Legal Aid, trying to get them to represent me, but they told me they didn't have the funds for at least the magistrate case. But I would like the reason I wanted this story put out there because I wanted your audience to see just how people are violated. I mean, even your civil rights. There are rights that you have that are your God-given rights because you were born in the United States. And then just how all of these municipalities have violated us and broken laws, not following the law, and how that affects people's lives, how that has a real effect on people's lives. Look how I don't even have possession of my home. I'm not able to enter the property that I own part of. None of us can claim any piece or portion of that property until it's surveyed and subdivided. And this is all illegal. And
I think that was the first illegal thing was giving a property and dividing it without a full survey. And I think once it's all said and done, that will be reestablished.
yeah, and I wanted to get the story out just to get some notarization. I wanted people to know about what is going on in this county and what is being done in these courtrooms and all of these laws being broken. That's why I wanted to speak to someone who had a platform and could, put it out there. That's how I felt this should be handled.
Well, again, thank you for sharing your story, and I do hope that it gets resolved. And I understand you fully to where you've been wrong, especially when it comes to property that belongs to you. And not only that, you've lost the trust of a family member, and this is
And
probably
faith
the
in and faith in the judicial system in this
yeah,
county. I mean, I've lost
yeah.
faith. I mean, the only time I received a fair trial is when a jury ruled on the case. And both juries looked at the evidence that was submitted, and that is what their decision was based off of. But Mr. PJ, I appreciate you so much for taking the time and giving me the opportunity to speak with you and let your audience know what occurred. Thank you for your time. I hope I didn't sound crazy or, or rattled on too much. And I hope everyone understands what happened. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I appreciate you sharing this story with me, and my heart goes out to you and your family, and I hope this does get resolved, and just cooler heads prevail. And actually, if the right people get a hold of it, I'm pretty sure that this will get resolved peacefully.
And that's what I wanted to happen. And once it's resolved and everything, I'll call and update you.
Okay. Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate you,
you.
Tasha.
Good night.
All right.
Thank
You have
you.
a good night. Thank you for joining.
Okay. God bless.
Day and night. For some women, it can start working in as quick as 1 week.